Hi, everybody. It's Tony Barger here with the Quality Assurance and Compliance team. We want to welcome you to another edition of our Right Way Wednesday. We're here on Facebook and in other platforms. We hope to bring you the latest and greatest to really any kind of topic: billing, clinical documentation, regulatory requirements, all of that great stuff. So welcome. Today is a great shout out to our senior living teams where many of you are knee deep in the Merit Incentive Payment System, or MIPS, and we're going to take a couple of minutes and go through really a nice short and sweet overview of the process, maybe help to answer some of the questions that may be lingering out there related to MIPS, and hopefully give you something to refer back to if needed. So one quick thing I would mention is on this platform, we have a lot of folks, even people outside of Health Pro Heritage. And I would caution everybody, much of what we're going to share is specific to how Health Pro Heritage is responding to the CMS requirements related to MIPS. There's lots of options related to quality measures and certainly some of the other pieces of how this data is being reported and recorded, but know that we've worked through a best practice on our end that we feel like is going to help our teams to really build on what they're doing already regarding clinical care and great clinical documentation, and just building upon that. So I just wanted to make certain to kind of touch on that before we got into our discussion today. So one common question, or certainly area where clinicians may have lots of questions on, are what are the MIPS measures that we're completing here at Health Pro Heritage. And again, in our senior living communities, we've designated a total of 9 measures that are reported on. And there's some nuances in how that's broken down between each therapy discipline. So for our speech language pathologists, we're reporting on pain and medications. For physical therapy, we're reporting on also pain and medications, as well as BMI, the falls risk assessment and falls plan of care. And then there are options with the photo measure, either the ankle, foot, elbow, wrist, and hand, or the lumbar, spine, or low back. And the beautiful thing about that is for occupational therapy, it's exactly the same as for physical therapy, with the exception that OT also has an additional measure of the dementia functional status assessment. So it's important to know that all of those are to be completed, and there are some exceptions to that, and we'll kind of go through that here in our discussion. One other area where there seems to be a lot of questions, or certainly is just great to review, is what is our typical process with reporting our MIPS data? And so I wanted to take a couple of minutes and just go through that with you. So I think the easiest place to start is that most of it is done through the evaluative process, at the start of care. And one area that you're always going to start with is on the functional deficit screen, or certainly on your drop downs if you're using the iPads, that it's looking at each of those specific fields related to the MIPS measures. The intent is that you would complete data in all of those. Now, there are some exceptions related to the photo measure in particular, and we'll talk about that here in just another second. So first step, functional deficits, looking at those drop downs, pulling the appropriate options for your patients. The second piece is we've built in narrative statements into HealthMax to be able to help navigate through those pieces. And you can access those narrative statements in your standardized tests narrative box within that functional deficits area, or on the plan of care document. And there's a specific narrative statement that's relative to each of the MIPS measures, including a couple of options that, if in particular instances that you didn't complete the measure, to give you some structure to really work off of. The third piece is in that same area where you select your CPT codes that you're going to bill under, there's also options there for quality data codes related to MIPS. And again, for those that have been exposed to that, this makes probably great sense to you now. But there are unique quality data codes that are used during the MIPS reporting process. And so you need to select all of the appropriate quality data codes that you anticipate you're going to be reporting on for this patient when you're in that CPT code table during the evaluative process. So again, you would select options for MIPS, for pain. That's obviously for just our speech language pathologists, but for PT and OT, it would be BMI, pain medications, the 2 fall risk and falls plan of care measures. If you're planning to report on the falls plan of care, or excuse me, the photo measure, any of those 3 options on the photo, and the dementia functional status assessment measure. So again, you would select the options that you want to pick at the time of the evaluation, and that'll make a bit more sense here in a second. And then the last piece is that you need to go to the input daily screen. And this again is completed for most of the measures at the time of evaluation only. So you'd click over to the input daily, go to those quality data codes that you did select right from the CPT code table we just talked about a second ago, and you're going to place an X in the quantity column of the appropriate quality data code. And again, it's not treatment minutes or evaluation minutes that you would include under each of those quality data codes. You're simply placing an X in the appropriate quality data code that would allow us to be able to report that information to CMS. So you can basically substantiate that you've completed that MIPS measure. And again, you're going to select those options. Now, here is one of the main exceptions to that, is photo. And you know, that's always keeping things interesting, right? For all of us. So for photo, that is something that you're completing the actual survey related to photo that you link through, right, through our MIPS resources folder that's on the desktop or laptop, and it's also on the iPad. That once you complete that, there's content that you would complete during the evaluative process, and then you come back again and do the photo at time of discharge, and then that's when you actually report that quality data code on the input daily screen is at the time of discharge. Now, to make this a bit simpler for you, we have recorded a kind of a how-to video related to the photo measures that literally walks you through every single step of that process. All you need to do is go into the MIPS resources folder. Again, that's on your desktop or laptop computer issued by Health Pro Heritage, or that iPad that you may be using. And there's a how-to video where we literally walk you through the steps in HealthMax of completing not only the computer adaptive survey for the photo measure itself, but also going into HealthMax and going from screen to screen or item to item and how you complete that from start to finish. So I would tell you, go and check that part out, because if you have questions related to the photo measure, it is important. Go to that video. That I think certainly will help you walk through those steps. Now, 2 last things I would leave you with before we wrap up today. The first is, and again, it's about the photo measure, is you're taking a look as a clinician, right, during the evaluative process to look to see if there are impairments that these patients or this patient has that's related to any of those 3 areas that are addressed in the photo measure. Again, the lower leg or ankle foot, the elbow, wrist, and hand, or the lumbar spine or low back. If you have impairments for those patients that fall into that, pick the best option that you're going to report on related to photo and complete the photo survey for that particular measure. You can uncheck the other 2 that you plan to not complete the photo measure on, and then proceed how you normally would. If you've completely ruled out that the issue or the challenges that you're addressing in your treatment plan don't really fall into any of those 3 impairment areas, then you can uncheck all 3 of those photo measures and not move forward with completing the photo. I would encourage you, though, take a look, though, to make certain that for your particular patient and the challenges that the patient has, that they really are not impaired in those areas and that the photo wouldn't make sense to complete. And then the last thing I would share with you, so we can keep this hopefully, again, short and sweet, is remember that each of us have access to that MIPS resources folder, and it's on the desktop and laptop computers as well as on your iPad devices. Any evaluating clinician can link into that folder and find lots of resources. We've created a quick reference guide for each of the MIPS measures that walks you through each of the steps, including screenshots out of HealthMax that helps guide you through that process. We've also listed kind of a quick reference guide to all of the quality data codes that exist for each therapy discipline for MIPS. And we've outlined that. That might be a great tool for you to use, that when you're getting comfortable with that evaluation process, that you can look at that tool and make certain that you've selected something from each of those MIPS measures through those quality data codes. And then the last thing is don't forget, and I mentioned this just a bit ago, is we do have videos, 2 how-to videos, specifically one for the photo measure, and then the other video is specific to the falls risk assessment and falls plan of care measures. That's where a lot of the questions have tended to come from, and if you take a look at those videos, that may be helpful to help answer some of those lingering questions that you have. I hope this has been a good overview of MIPS. Again, for our senior living teams that are out there, thank you for the efforts that you're doing. You know, this CMS requirement is just another layer of the great things that we have to do each and every day. So we appreciate all of your time and attention and detail and focus that you've placed on this process. If you do have questions, again, first I would tell you, go to that MIPS resources folder. You may find your answers right there. If not, I would encourage you, reach out to your regional manager or RVP. Don't hesitate to reach out to a member of the quality assurance and compliance team or the clinical strategies team. And one of us will be able to help navigate through those questions that you have related to MIPS. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and stay tuned for our next Right Way Wednesday. So happy summer and have a great day. Thank you.